Sox in the basement.
Miguel Vargas.
What about him?
I think throughout the entire 2025 season, you heard me on this program say that I wasn't sure what he was. That there were moments where I was like, oh, he's turning a corner. He's a really good ball player. He's good at the plate. He's really coming into his own. Maybe that trade is a plus. Maybe he's a piece long term. And then he would go into these slumps and I would say, well, wait, look at the overall and then make a decision about Miguel Vargas and what he is. And now we've gotten to the end of the season. And I know we've talked about a lot of things over the last couple of weeks here as the offseason for the White Sox has begun, even though the postseason is still going on with the World Series set now. And that is going to be a great series. But we haven't really, even though we interviewed Don Cooper and talked about pitching and looked at free agents, we haven't really looked at the team and said, now that we have the whole 162 in, what do we think of these guys? And Vargas really should be the first guy that we talk about, Ed, because I wanted to just see what a whole season was. I didn't want to get excited when he was high. I didn't want to be down on him when he was low. And if you look at what he was coming into the season, according to Baseball Reference, his whole career up until that point, he was a -1 win above replacement. So he was worth actually a loss for his career up until the start of this season. And he almost got 2 wins above replacement through Baseball Reference, showing that he had some value this year. He had 569 plate appearances. He came very, very close to what the White Sox thought they were trading for when they picked him up in the middle of 24. Because through 80 plate appearances and only 30 games with the Dodgers that year, he had hit 239 with a 735 OPS. And this year, what they got, now that everything is in the books, they got 234 with a 717 OPS. His OPS plus is 100 even, which means he's right there at league average in OPS. He walked 56 times, but struck out an even 100 times. He only had 16 home runs, but he hit 32 doubles and 2 triples. And that's where he's getting his slugging numbers from, because he slugged .401. Is he good enough, looking at the whole season, not getting excited about the highs, not getting too down about the lows, but looking at those numbers and the fact that he's 25 years old and that it's an improvement over everything he had done at the major league level before this season started? What are your feelings on him? And is he one of the guys that you're keeping around and not considering moving when we're talking about the idea that, yes, you have 9 guys that can take the field. Yes, you have a complete lineup of young, controllable players, but some things are going to have to be changed because this lineup, the way it is not going to get you to the next level. What do you think of him?
He is somebody that you can live with, not somebody you can live without. I think there's probably still room for improvement, but the numbers don't jump off the page. And the eyeball test doesn't jump off the page. The 30 doubles, okay, that is by far and away the most on the team. All right. The next highest person is Lenyn Sosa with 20. Clearly, the guy can hit. All right. He's got some pop in his bat. The question is, can he hit enough? Okay, 234 as an average is pretty below par for a guy that's not going to touch 30 to 40 home runs.
And is a corner infielder. Remember that. We're talking corner infield. What do you expect from your third base or first baseman?
And here's the thing. I look at his defensive metrics, and that's where I start to have more problems with him, because if you're sitting here saying that this is your first baseman, this is your third baseman, okay, he's not great. All right. A 982 fielding percentage, 11 errors isn't so much better than, say, Lenyn Sosa, who we have panned for his defense, than, to the point where you sit there and you go, okay, well, we have the third base situation solved, where you can sit there and say a guy who's hitting 234 where the arrows may be pointing up, but he's really good defensively there. I mean, think about Joe Creedy making, his initial appearance back in the day. You weren't sure the guy could hit. Then all of a sudden in 2005, he's the most clutch hitter on the team. Or at least that's the vibe that he put off, right? But in the meantime, what was the most important thing about Joe Creedy? When he would do Joe Creedy things at third base, a ball would be hit, and somehow somehow he's catching ground balls on the fly.
He was Brooks Robinson throughout the 2005 playoffs. Like, he was insane.
It was insanity. Miguel Vargas isn't that. I mean, you look at the total zone fielding runs above average per 12,000 innings, or 1,200 innings rather, okay? Number of runs above or below average, and I'm looking at Baseball Reference for this. That as a metric, he's 19 below average. To give you an idea, Lenyn Sosa is 6 below average.
Yeah, but here's the weird thing. Like, so Sosa, just as a comparison, 264, 727 OPS, so 10 points higher, not a big difference, right? He strikes out 127 times to 18 walks. He hits 22 home runs. He has 20 doubles and 1 triple. He goes out with 544 plate appearances. He gets half the WAR, according to Baseball Reference. Now, his defense is poor, so either Vargas brings something. I mean, Vargas at least brings better defense, because if you look at the numbers, if you're just going off of purely offensive numbers, Sosa would be even, if not better than Vargas. So somewhere Vargas is getting more value. So I that's the hardest thing with defensive metrics for me to understand. Like, I'm like most people that are sitting out there right now listening to this show, because I know the eye test and I know the numbers you're giving, and they make perfect and total sense to me. But he's not as much of a butcher as Sosa, right? You're not saying that he's that bad.
No, Sosa, see, that's where the eyeball test comes into play, where you can't go off of pure stats when you're analyzing a player, because we watched Lenyn Sosa not be able to get to balls he needs to be able to get to, right? We watched Lenyn Sosa, like you said, butcher it. Miguel Vargas is a guy that played seemingly competent defense, but the numbers suggest that maybe it wasn't as good as what we thought. And his offensive numbers, to a certain degree, there's a little bit of an improvement over Lenyn Sosa when it comes to on base percentage, where he's 20 points higher, not 20 points, but it's 316 to 293. Okay, so he's getting on base at a better clip. There's a little bit more offensive balance to Miguel Vargas versus a Lenyn Sosa. But my point of it is not necessarily to compare and contrast just these two guys. The point is that if we're looking at what Lenyn Sosa represents to the future of the White Sox, I wonder if he's a guy that, if you're looking at free agents, if you're looking at the next wave, if you're looking at what happens next, and you're looking at the outfield in particular, where you just don't really have a lot going on. You have Braden Montgomery on the way, and then that's about it. You have Luis Robert Jr., who the assumption is you're not going to keep around. You have Andrew Benintendi, questionable whether you keep him around, Mike Tauchman, but there's not a whole lot else going there. You wonder if Miguel Vargas moves back to left field, if they decide that Curtis Mead is going to be a guy that they want at third base, or if they decide that there's a first baseman out there that they would welcome into the fold, or if that's what you get in return for a trade. I think Miguel Vargas's value is that when you go into next year, here's a guy that offensively you can hit seventh. Okay, let's think about him as like your seventh hitter in the lineup, or sixth hitter in the lineup. A guy that is going to produce something. He's not going to be a complete and total non-entity out there, but you can live with him at first. You can live with him at third. You might be able to live with him in the outfield, and that has intrinsic value. I think if somebody came to you and said, I will give you, these great A-level prospects, A-ball prospects for Miguel Vargas, I think you'd have to think long and hard about what that means to the 2026 Chicago White Sox, and whether or not he's a guy that you want to, give away for some lottery tickets for the future.
I don't think I would do that.
I don't think I would do that either.
I would. See, here's the thing. I think that there's other pieces. Like, I think you can move Sosa. I think that's the guy. As much as I enjoyed the streakiness and the things that he did, and there were times where it looked like he really put it together. Oh, yeah. There was also a big slump off at the end, and also the defense is lacking, and I don't think there's a real position for him. I know we're giving up one of our best home run hitters on the season, but this may be the moment when you look at the free agent list right now, and infielders, especially those that position themselves at multiple positions. And I know, again, he's not a great defensive player, but he's one of those guys that some teams may be convinced, well, I can put him in as a nice reserve, and he's going to bring some pop out there. And if you find somebody that's willing to do that, who thinks that a controllable player like that, who they can move around into different places and can hit the ball out of the ballpark, and they want that 264, but with that 22 home runs and the potential, the fact that he's only 25 years old, that's the guy that I'd be like, if somebody wants that, I would bring that in for a AAA prospect that I thought was close that could help me. I would bring that in for a couple of different players. I would package him with one of those fourth or fifth starters that we seem to have a plethora of. Somebody that you've made a decision, look, this guy's probably good enough to pitch in the majors, but we have better options because we have so many of them down there right now that we're trying to develop. Like, make a package and move on from him. I do look at Vargas now, even as somebody who was one of his detractors throughout a good portion of the season and definitely last year. If you listen to the show, you know how I felt about him.
Oh, it was reviled.
Yeah.
The trade for him was reviled on this show.
I didn't like the trade because I had watched him enough.
Well, neither of us did.
And he had done nothing to prove that he was going to be an everyday Major League Baseball player. And again, the best he did this year over a full season and nothing but support from the team was the same as the small sample size at the beginning of last season with the Dodgers, that the White Sox said, if he can at least be that as his base, and then we can improve him, this trade is worth it. And he finally got back to that. So now the real question is, can they improve him and can he get better? And is he worth a quarter infield spot? And I think at this point, when you're not going for it, when there's other things that can be addressed, you just go, okay, fine, he's one of my corner infielders, or he's at least on my team.
And especially because one of the things to recall is during the season, Miguel Vargas' name surfaced as a guy that was holding the clubhouse together.
Yes,
right.
And that's important.
That is extremely important because Will Venable needs those guys. And if that's who Miguel Vargas is, if he's one of those dudes, then you hold on to that, even if you think that the production might be slightly better here or there, more home runs or whatever you think Lenyn Sosa is going to give you. And again, I don't know that we intended to compare and contrast those two guys directly, but I would, if it came to it, yeah, I'd keep Vargas over Sosa at the moment.
I think so too. Folks, let's say you're switching to a new age of life, or you've just had a surgery, or, you're trying to help out mom and dad, grandma and grandpa. Fall in Chicago means football, baseball, plenty of hours in front of the TV. And for seniors and those with mobility challenges, that also means more time sitting, and a lift chair from Hyatt Home Medical Equipment makes all the difference, because if they got to get up and push a button, the chair will easily and gently lift you up. Cushions, adjustable recline, built-in support. You're going to get aggravated at some point when Caleb Williams stands back there for 22 seconds and can't figure out how to throw the ball. You need to have a chair that will get you up during a Bears game, right? Elevate your legs, reducing swelling. There's safety at home with these things. Prevent falls and strain when you are standing up. Learn all about these at hhme.com and check out Hyatt Home Medical Equipment. I like this. I want to kind of go through some other guys here. Colson Montgomery, by the way, with a very small season, only 284 plate appearances in 71 games, led all players with a 3.3 win above replacement, according to Baseball Reference. And that includes the pitchers. He was the most valuable player on the team, wins above replacement, according to Baseball Reference, than anybody else. And he didn't even get here till the All-Star break. Like, that guy, that guy's got a spot. That guy's like, that's the guy the White Sox will point to all off season saying, we can develop players. We could take a guy who's falling off of the minors and we can change the story, change the narrative, get him right in his head and get him back out there, which is something I never believed was possible with this organization with the 48 years that I've been on earth as a White Sox fan. Like, something I didn't even believe was possible. But if we're going to look at more comparisons, because I know he's got a spot, let's look at the two catchers. Because this is going to be a storyline that people are going to bring up, right or wrong. Do you need both of them? And I'm not even counting Lee down in the minors, but there's a lot of people. There are people in the media. There are people that follow this team. There are fans that I bump into who will sit there and say, unless you're going to play them both all the time and keep three catchers so that one can DH and the other one can catch, and then if there has to be some sort of a substitution or an injury or something like that, Lee can come in there. Unless you're going to do something like that, you might need to move one of them to make your lineup better. Again, like I said, you have all the positions essentially filled with controllable players, but you're going to have to get better in certain areas and make decisions. Is this guy better than this guy? And can we move the other one to bring in a piece that we need? Maybe add some home runs, maybe add some defense somewhere, maybe add more to our starting pitching. So Edgar Carroll, 1.2 WAR, according to Baseball Reference. Kyle Teel, 1.9. Teel hit 273 with a 786 OPS, a 121 OPS plus, which shows he's well above average. Over the course of only 297 plate appearances, he hits 8 bombs, 11 doubles, no triples. He walks 37 times to 77 strikeouts. Edgar Carroll walks 32 times to 71 strikeouts while hitting 268 with a 689 OPS, which is a little bit below the league average. He gets 17 doubles, no triples, 5 home runs over 403 plate appearances. He plays in 111 games. Teel plays in 78 this year. Teel was worth more. Like, I think that Teel, the weirdest thing is, I feel like they're very different personalities. Edgar Carroll,
yes.
Remember when Carlton Fisk would stand out there and he was the commander, right?
Right. That's what because he hated being called Pudge, but he was the commander.
The commander, right? That's what Carroll feels like. Like, he's got a presence when he's out there. But Teel seems a little better. They're both really good players that I would love to keep on my team. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would love to keep them both on my team, but I don't hear any whispers of changing one of their positions right now. So this is a big thing to kind of look at. What are your thoughts?
Well, and you look at them defensively too, and the numbers are interesting. 502 in the third innings caught for Kyle Teel, 579 innings caught for Edgar Carroll. Okay. In that time, Kyle Teel, 8 pass balls he allows. Edgar Carroll, none. He didn't allow a single pass ball the entire season.
He's the better defensive catcher.
And I think so. His caught stealing percentage is a little bit lower than Teal's. Teal's is 17.9. Carroll's is 15.9, but Edgar Carroll picks off 5 guys, off the bases on his own. Teel doesn't pick off anybody. And 69 people attempted stolen bases off of Edgar Carroll versus only 46 off of Teel. So you have, you have a little bit of a natural skew, I believe, in the caught stealing percentage if you're looking at that defensively. And their fielding percentage, if you want to go by that, 990 for Kyle Teel, which is good, and then 996 for Edgar Carroll, and the 988 belonged to Corey Lee of all people. So the 996 for Carroll, I do feel like, just from the standpoint of what he does behind the plate, Carroll is the more compelling catcher, right? He does feel like he's in command. And you and I talked about how there's a different feel a little bit between Kyle Teel flopping around back there behind the plate, having a good time, and Edgar Carroll, who seems to be in command. He seems to be in command of the base running. He seems to be in command of what's going on with the pitcher. And Teel, I think, and Carroll probably are not game calling on their own to enough of a degree to really make that, a difference. And I don't have framing numbers in front of me to the extent that that's even important anymore.
Yeah, but I feel like I think most White Sox fans who watch the games and paid attention to these guys can even look up the stats. The guy who's in control out there and feels like the catcher who's the leader, who's running the entire field, it feels more like Carroll, and defensively he feels like he's the better guy, right? And so then the next thing you would say is, well, I want to keep Kyle Teel because I like him. Like, I think he's a very valuable weapon, and I think he's going to become a really good ball player. So now the question is, well, can you put him someplace else? And if you look, they did put him in for an inning in left field this year. I thought that was really interesting. The Sox they did 1 inning. They kind of threw him out there. He did play in the outfield for Virginia. Okay. He would move out there into right field. And it looks like he played just as many games in the outfield than he played at catcher in some of those seasons.
Yeah.
And only in his last year, in his last college year, did he play every game exclusively at catcher. But he did play the outfield, left field, right field. He went out there. I think he played 1 game in center field as I'm looking at this. But he went out there and he can at least grab the glove and knows what it's like to stand out there. And he did that in his college career. So that's what they have to make a decision on. They have to say, like, okay, if he were an outfielder, is he valuable as a corner outfielder? I mean, he doesn't have the home run total this year, but he only really played half the season. If he went out there and gave you 25 home runs and was capable of standing out there and could come in as a catcher on Caro's days off, it's like one of those offseason storylines that I'm waiting to see buzz about what they're going to do with these two guys. Because it's the one thing that Chris Getz and company have done a very good job of keeping all the cards very close to their vest. But I don't know if you necessarily move one of them if you think that you can do what I just described.
Yeah, I don't know that you trade one of them at this point, unless the offer is overwhelming, right? Unless
you might
it's
get
something.
One of those. Catchers are valuable. Yeah.
They really are. And if it's an overwhelming offer, if it is the proverbial Godfather offer that you can't refuse, then yeah, I think Chris Getz has to, has the comfort of sitting there going, we could really win with the other guy, whoever's not being traded for. For what it's worth, the framing rates, Kyle Teal's a much better framer than Edgar Caro, which I think was
but robot arms are going to fix all
up.
that. Robot arms fix all that, and it's coming.
And the ABS system is coming. So it's just one of those things where I think what it'll come down to, honestly, is which one of those guys is willing to do it, okay, and is comfortable doing it. Because if there's any question about it, what you don't want to do with a young player is have them spiral down because they're in a new position, because they're trying something that they've never really tried before. And you're right, Kyle Teal did play some outfield and probably has more experience at that. They do have a hole at first base for one of those guys if they feel like they will give the offensive production that's commensurate with what you could put at first base. And in that regard, I don't know which one's the better athlete for it, okay? But it does just really feel like, from the mindset of what's going on behind the plate, what he did with his arm, I would lean towards keeping Edgar Caro behind the plate, and I'd let Kyle Teal go out into the field and see what he could do and protect his bat, because ultimately, also between the two of them, I just watching them and looking at the final numbers, I feel like Teal's offensive ceiling seems higher than Edgar Caro's, which they're both really good, but it's just one of those things where you kind of wonder if Teal's got a gear that Caro maybe doesn't.
No, I think Teal has that gear.
Yeah.
Like I think offensively Teal could be a really, really big asset. And the fact that he's speedy, there's a lot there. That's why it would make me nervous to get rid of either one of these guys. Like I would wince if I heard that they had been moved. And then I would have to look at it and be like, trying to justify the movement. And that's the thing. Like that has to be an internal discussion right now. Are we going to teach a new position? Or at least tell Teal, hey, what did you think about playing the outfield back in college? Would you do that majority of the time, and then we could put you behind the plate every once in a while? It would save your knees. It would make your career better. You'd probably have more pop behind the plate because you'd have fresh legs. There's selling points that you can give a guy on that as well. So, that has definitely got to be a discussion. Sox in the Basement listeners trying to make the most of your money. Give a call to Tom Walsh, your Edward Jones financial advisor. Located on the corner of 111th and Kedzie, but serving the Chicagoland area, Tom has a get-to-know-you approach and a do-the-right-thing attitude. He's been doing this for decades. It's all about knowing your options when you're investing and planning for your retirement. No matter what stage you are at, it costs nothing to check in with Tom. Give Tom Walsh, your Edward Jones financial advisor, a call today, 773-779-0023. Edward Jones, member SIPC. I want to mention real quick the $1,000 guest bounty.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. $1,000 guest bounty. Don Cooper's been on the show already this offseason, and we've just got started. A lot of people getting in the guests that they have some sort of connection to, that they're trying to set up to get them on Sox in the Basement. Doesn't need to be a baseball person. Doesn't need to be a White Sox member. It could be anything, but we're just looking for interesting guests this offseason, and the fans will vote on which one was the best interview and the best guest of the entire offseason. And the winner, the person who helped us set that up, wins $1,000. It's all brought to you by Cork and Carry at the Park, 33rd in Princeton, in the shadow of the ballpark, a great neighborhood bar in the off season, but in season, you definitely want to be there pregame, postgame, even in-game to just enjoy the game. And make sure you stop by Cork and Carry in Beverly at 10614 South Western Avenue. See everything they have going on at Cork and Carry I know we've only stuck to a couple of different players, so I'm going to try to rapid fire a few guys and just see like what your opinion is on them now that we can look back at a whole season.
Right.
Because I think
there's not too many position players left that are going to be around.
Yeah, but okay. Chase Meidroth, whole season, 505 plate appearances. He hits 253 with a 649 OPS, but he walks 45 times with 72 strikeouts. He loves to get on base. And he had a 1.2 wins above replacement in his rookie season at 23 years old. My opinion is I'd be disappointed if the guy was moved on from. I just don't know if in the long term he's a utility guy that moves around or if he's an everyday starting second baseman.
Yeah, I'm. You keep him around for next year for sure. You have him as penciled in as your starting second baseman, I think, and he's a guy that if he gets beat out by somebody better, so be it. But if he also beats out guys that you think might be better, so be it. Right? He's a gamer. Like you said, he gets on base, which makes him useful, and he doesn't completely suck in the field. He's not great, but he doesn't completely suck in the field. So good second basemen are hard to come by, especially when they can contribute offensively. Keep him around until he loses his position.
All right, let's talk about the problem. And this is a problem. And it's something I'm sure they want to move, but I don't think they're going to be able to. Because you need to free up money when you have a cheapskate owner. And you have an Andrew Benintendi still locked in for a couple more seasons at $15 million. And I know that is a pretty basic contract for an outfielder. It's not a ton of money in the grand scheme of things when you're looking across Major League Baseball. But here's a guy who the last time that he had better than a 1 win above replacement season, according to Baseball Reference, was back when he was 26 years old with the Royals. Actually, he also did it in 2022 when he's 27 years old, half the time with the Royals. In fact, that's where he did the majority of it. And then he was just pretty average for the Yankees when he got traded. But his 28, 29, and 30 year, 0.4 wins above replacement, negative 0.8, and a positive 1. He is a replacement level left fielder making $15 million a year, still locked in for a couple more years for you. He had a 738 on base, a 738 OPS, so he's a little bit above league average, and that's the first time he's done that in his career with the White Sox. He also hit 20 home runs for the second year in a row. He hit 240 for you as well. He gets on base at a 307 clip. Your thoughts on Benny? Because I don't know if they can move him, but I feel like if they could, they definitely would.
Move him if you can. I mean, at this point, move him if you can. If for no other reason, then he's got more value to somebody as a fourth outfielder or to a team that's going to compete that doesn't need him to be a star, that's going to put him towards the bottom of the lineup. They will take his 240 average and 20 home runs and professionalism and roll with it. So I'd move on if you can, but you're right. If you can't move on, I mean, okay, there's worse fates than having Andrew Benintendi for another 2 years.
Well, that's the guy, though, I'd like to move. It might be addition from subtraction, right? Like you might not even be concerned. Here's the thing. You might not be concerned with anything you get back for him if you can move on from him, because if you can clear his money, you can use that to go address other needs on this team. You can add that to the rest of the pool because you have very few dollars committed on this team and you need to add some home runs. And you could take Kyle Teal now and put him in left field because Andrew Benintendi is a butcher in the outfield. So you can't tell me that Teal... No. I would like to see the Teal experiment out there and Benintendi moved on from than to see Andrew Benintendi out there and they do something like trade Kyle Teal or Edgar Carroll. Like if you gave me one of those two options, I'd be like, trade Andrew Benintendi for a bag of balls right now. Clear the $15 million. Who cares what you get back for him? Let yourself be taken and get fleeced. You just want to get the money off the books. To a team that's got plenty of money and would just love to add a guy if they know what he is.
Well, that's a beautiful thing. You can trade him and not get fleeced because there's no way to fleece you out of Andrew Benintendi. I mean,
exactly. But I mean, anyway, if you could find a way to subtract him off the team, again, it goes back to the last discussion. What do you do with Kyle Teal? Well, now you can sit there and say, oh, hey, he played some outfield and when he was in the NCAA, and we're going to give him a little bit of a try out there, or we're going to rotate it around this year. He might not be the guy who's out there all the time, but that is something that could be experimented with. If you were, we keep talking about you're like Vargas. Vargas, you might consider moving him out to the corner outfield spot. Teal, you might consider moving him out to a corner outfield spot. We got to make a corner outfield spot. And to be honest with you, I believe left field is the one where you put the worst outfielder. I really, as long as
100%. This is not Little League where the worst players in right field.
No.
It's always left field in the majors.
Left field is where you put the guy. That's why Andrew Vaughn would stand out there. Because you need the cannon arm out and right. And I think Braden Montgomery eventually becomes the right fielder. I think that's what the plan is, and the hope is that he's there halfway through the year next year. So that's the guy that I think. Like, look, I wanted to believe that he was going to do more than what he did this year, but in the end, he's a replacement level outfielder making $15 million a year. If I could sit here and tell you that Andrew Vaughn was never going to be anything more than what Andrew Vaughn is. Or was when he was with the White Sox, and we'll see what he ends up with a full season with the Brewers. If I can say that it was never going to get any better with Andrew Vaughn, I got to be able to say it's never going to get any better with Andrew Benintendi.
It's only going to get worse. No, he's 30 years old.
The problem is the money. The money's the main issue in that entire scenario, and it's something that you got to come to a conclusion on what you're going to do with him. We ran out of time. We could do this again on a future episode. We'll definitely talk. Yeah. We'll definitely talk about this stuff more. I think when you look at the team now as a whole, it's very easy to see what you have and what you can move. It's all about clearing a little bit of space, my friend, with that payroll and trying to find which players would be valuable to somebody else enough that you can get something back or at least make room for, let's say, the two really good catchers you have and you don't want to get rid of.
Right, and remember, only here on the south side of Chicago is Andrew Benintendi's league average contract considered a financial problem.
That's it. It's the only place.
The only place.
It's so sad.
Socks in the basement. Socks in the basement. Socks in the basement.
Socks in the Basement. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always on socksinthebasement.com.